Good morning, and welcome to Community Unitarian Universalist Congregation. I'm the Reverend Laura Kim Joyner, a community minister in this congregation and your worship associate for this morning. I'm coming to you from the parsonage, which is down below the CUUC buildings in White Plains, New York. And our guest minister today is the Reverend Leslie Becknell Marx, who's coming to us all the way from Oregon, where it's just after 7 in the morning there. I've known her since we were both younger in the ministry, doing workshops at General Assembly on nonviolent communication, and she's been involved in leadership ever since. Our minister, Reverend Meredith Garman, is out of the pulpit until July 26th, and right now he's on a virtual Zen retreat. Though, when it comes to Zen, I'm not sure there's a difference between a virtual and a regular retreat. We are delighted to welcome you on this fourth Sunday of summer with a waning moon that is just 1 week past full. The chipmunks continue to rule our yards, and just this week we saw a black-crowned night heron near CUUC. On this fourth Sunday of the season, we especially remember the fourth principle, our covenant to affirm and promote a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. Whether you are nearby or on the other side of the world, thank you for being with us today. We especially welcome our visitors. And if you're a first-time attendee, and only if you feel comfortable, go ahead and introduce yourself in the chat so we can know that you're here. And remember, the chat is well for just talking to each other, but if you have any technical issues, and when you're in the chat, make sure you click it to all attendees and panelists, and not just a panelist, so we can all hear. And if you are visiting this morning, you will find the order of service on our website, cuucwp.org, along with all the resources to help keep us connected during this time. And remember, if your audio isn't working, you can listen to the service by calling on the phone. The phone number is in the order of service, which was sent to you by email and is also on our website. We have a number of ways you can support and care for our community. For July and August, we are sharing the plate with Hope Community Services, which runs one of the largest emergency food pantries in the region and provides a variety of other services for its clients. During the pandemic, our congregation's hunger and homelessness team has been proudly supporting Hope with weekly deliveries of dinner trays and lunch items prepared by our dedicated volunteers. You can contribute by clicking the donate button on our website, or by sending a check to CUUC with Share the Plate Hope in the memo line. You can find our mailing address on the website. We are now also able to take contributions via PayPal for your pledge, the plate share, ministry's discretionary fund, and the benevolent fund. Again, you'll find the donate button on the homepage on our website at cuucwp.org. Thank you for being with us this morning. It's an honor for us to make this space to be together. Across the distance and through the screens that separate us, each of us lights helps our lights shining. Together, we keep the flame of community burning bright.
If you have a chalice or candle in your home, I invite you to place it before you and light it as you say along with me these chalice lighting words. We light this chalice to affirm that new light is ever waiting to break through to illumine our ways. That new truth is ever waiting to break through to enlighten our minds. And that new love is ever waiting to break through to warm our hearts. How Trinitarianism became orthodox. Roman Emperor Constantine's reign began in the year 306 when he was 34 years old. His reign would last 31 years, and his administrative and financial reforms strengthened the empire. 6 years into his reign, Constantine converted to Christianity, becoming the first Christian Roman emperor after centuries of Christian persecution at the hands of the Romans. The Christianity of the time was scattered and diverse, no central authority, no commonly accepted scripture, no commonly practiced liturgy, no orthodox theology. ideology. For Constantine, devoted to bringing administrative order to his empire, this had to be fixed. So, in 325, Constantine convoked the Council of Nicaea, calling all the bishops together to hash out just what Christianity was. Jesus of Nazareth was the religion's central figure, but was he the latest in a long line of prophets calling people to righteousness and piety? Or was he something more? And if more, what? Constantine didn't care how these questions were answered, just so long as there was a uniform answer. He invited all 1,800 Christian bishops, and more than 250 of them actually went to Nicaea that summer, representing every region of the Roman Empire. Constantine himself was there for some of it. For 3 months they discussed and debated, drafted and revised statements, and in the end they adopted a statement that established Trinitarianism as orthodoxy, and the more Unitarian form of Christianity, advocated by a priest named Arius, was declared heresy. We've been the heretics ever since.
Good morning, everyone. I am the Reverend Leslie Becknell Marx, and I am glad to be here as we enter into the spirit of worship with this invocation. Build now your church, my brothers, sisters. Build never with brick or corten, nor with granite. Build with live love, with love like lion eyes, with love like morning rise. with love like black, our black, luminously indiscreet, complete, continuous. This is the urgency. Live. The garbage man is dignified as any diplomat. Big Bessie's feet hurt like nobody's business, but she stands bigly under the unruly scrutiny. It is lonesome, yes. Nevertheless, live. Conduct your blooming in the noise and whip of the whirlwind. And now we will join together in singing. And this is a song Jason Shelton originally wrote as Standing on the Side of Love. In accountability to people with disabilities, Jason decided that the continued use of that metaphor, standing on the side of love, is a painful reminder of the barriers to full inclusion of people with disabilities in our congregations and at our General Assemblies. What is my responsibility as an artist when awareness of this pain comes to my consciousness? I am clear that the standing on the side of love metaphor as I intended it has nothing to do with the physical act of standing. It's about aligning ourselves with what love calls us to do. But I'm also clear that intent is not the same thing as impact. And the impact of this metaphor has become a barrier for some among us. I know that love is calling us to a new and deeper awareness, and I can do something about the song I wrote. And so now we'll sing together, Answering the Call of Love.
The promise of the Spirit, faith, hope, and love abide. And so every soul is blessed and made whole. The truth in our hearts is our guide. We are answering the call of love. Hands joined together as hearts beat as one, emboldened by faith, we dare to proclaim we are answering the call of love. Sometimes we build a barrier to keep love tightly bound, corrupted by fear, unwilling to hear, denying the beauty we found. We are answering the call of love. Hands joined together as hearts beat as one, emboldened by faith, we dare to proclaim we are answering the call of love. A bright new day is dawning, when love will not divide. Reflections of grace in every embrace, fulfilling the vision divine. We are answering the call of love. Hands joined together as hearts beat as one, emboldened by faith, we dare to proclaim We are answering the call of love. We are answering the call of love.
We acknowledge that which binds us in community through spoken and sung words that connect us to who we are. The mission of Unitarian Universalist Congregation was adopted in 2014. It is the promise, the vow, that all who are members here covenant to uphold. I invite you to say it along with me. We covenant to nurture each other in our spiritual journeys, foster compassion and understanding within and beyond our community, and engage in service to transform ourselves and the world. Now let us sing and affirm together the inspiration from We Would Be One.
Good morning. It is good to be with you all, even at this remote location. My husband's mother lives in New Rochelle and his sister lives in Katona, New York. And when we are there at Thanksgiving time or at our used to always be annual summer trip, I love to come worship with you all at Community Unitarian Universalist Congregation. So I am very happy to be with you here in spirit and so grateful that so many of you all are here. I love that you all say your mission in unison. So often missions are something that's on the website and visitors know it more with more ease and familiarity than members of the congregation. So I celebrate that with you and for you. And I want to talk about the first two words in that mission. We covenant. We covenant. A covenant is a sacred promise that is entered into freely and with reverence. We heard a historical lesson from Meredith. I didn't know anyone could speak that fast and convey so much so quickly. And here's another little historical lesson that our early religious forebears, the ancient Israelites, they are the ones who came up with this idea of covenant. They set their sights on an ideal that was beyond their current reality. And they held themselves to high standards, made promises, and recognized that even as they were destined to break those promises, they were blessed with the capacity to renew the promise and begin again. And we are called to do the same in our congregations today. Much of what we know about covenants is from the Hebrew Bible, and the practice of covenant continued into and was revised in the Christian Bible. the New Testament. Grounded in these sacred scriptures are Puritan forebears of New England. And when I say ours, I mean Unitarian. They used covenants between themselves as their organizing principles, rather than following some sort of institutional religious authority above. It was between the congregations. And our history traces directly back to them. And we ourselves govern as independent congregations bound to other congregations by the 7 principles that we covenant to affirm and promote. That is the language that comes before the principles. We covenant to affirm and promote. And the 20th century Unitarian theologian James Luther Adams explained the importance of covenants in our tradition, saying that human beings become human beings by making promises. And a meaningful covenant is a covenant of being with transformative powers. So it's a promise that we make that will transform us. And that the covenant is not just for the community's benefit, but also for the individual who is, as he said, brought out of separateness into covenant. As a member of this UU congregation, you make promises with the power to transform you. You are brought out of separateness and into connection and accountability. Covenants epitomize why we come together in religious community, to become clear about and express our ideals, and to be held accountable in love when we miss the mark. I talked about the 7 principles that we covenant together with other congregations. And there is now a movement, and has been for some years, to add an 8th principle, so that we would also, the member congregations of the Unitarian Universalist Association, covenant to affirm and promote journeying toward spiritual wholeness by working to build a diverse, multicultural, beloved community by our actions that accountably dismantle racism and other oppressions in ourselves and our institutions. So this is a long time coming. In 1997, at the General Assembly, which is the annual meeting of Unitarian Universalists, which just happened recently virtually, in 1997, they adopted a resolve to examine carefully our own conscious and unconscious racism as participants in a racist society and the effect racism has on all our lives, regardless of color. That was 1997. So we haven't done so well with this. There are reasons that folks aren't trusting us. In this General Assembly, in Article 2, which is where the principles are held, the Article 2 Study Commission is charged to review Article 2 of the UUA bylaws and propose any revisions that will enable our UUA, our member congregations, and our covenanted communities to be a relevant and powerful force for spiritual and moral growth, healing, and justice. So we are committing again to do it. And part of what they'll be considering is that 8th principle. And I just really hope that we do it. We are a mostly white congregation, and part of our privilege is that we can step back from this. We're not compelled to do it by the very nature of our lives. Martin Luther King's letter from a Birmingham jail that he wrote to the moderate clergy who were urging him to be patient King said, "We know through painful experience that freedom is never voluntarily given by the oppressor. It must be demanded by the oppressed. Frankly, I have yet to engage in a direct action campaign that was well-timed in the view of those who have not suffered unduly from the disease of segregation. For years now, I've heard the word wait. It rings in the ear of every Negro with piercing familiarity. This wait has almost always meant never." I was listening to NPR in the background recently, and I heard the author Brian Stevenson, the author of Just Mercy, which is also a movie now. And he asked out of my radio, how many of us really would have been abolitionists, would have stopped the lynchings? Because what are we doing now about mass incarceration, slave labor in prisons, mass stripping of voting rights? And I listened to this question and thought, oh, I'm reading, worrying, pontificating, and preaching occasionally. Have I made any action toward stopping it? I am convinced that cash bail is bad, bad, bad in my living room over a cup of tea. But in the legislature, on the phone with the Attorney General's office, on the internet to figure out if these are even the right places to take action? Nope, not yet. Is it any wonder Black people don't trust white people? I watched the movie 13th, which I highly recommend, and realized it was made in 2016, before the police killings of Breonna Taylor, Tatiana Jefferson, and George Floyd. And it sounded like it could have been created last week, which tells me that we haven't done much of anything in the years between. Trayvon Martin died at age 17 more than 8 years ago. You remember Trayvon, the teenage boy walking through the neighborhood with a bag of candy purchased at the convenience store, who was killed by the vigilante George Zimmerman. When Michael Brown was shot in August 2014, and the people took to the streets in Ferguson and the tanks rolled in, where were you then? I was visiting Boston, sitting in the living room of my colleague Martha Niebank, when she referred to the murder in Ferguson. And I thought, what? There was a murder too on top of all this? Until I realized that the murder victim was Michael Brown. That was when I actually got that all Black children hear the talk from their trusted adults. While I am teaching my son what I learned as a child, to wave at the police whenever he sees them, Black parents are coaching their children how not to be killed by the police. One benefit of being born in a body with a level of melanin in my skin, which gets me categorized as white, living in a society where whiteness is seen as so supreme that we want to open our eyes to it so we can notice it by naming it white supremacy culture. One benefit that I get is how I interact with the police. I get in my car and drive without concern. If I'm stopped by a police officer, I will have a driver's license, which I easily got as a US citizen, and I will be treated with respect. My fear will center around the expense and inconvenience that may result from this encounter. I will not fear imprisonment, physical harm, or death. What happened to Sandra Bland in Texas, Philando Castile in Minnesota, to Maurice Gordon in New Jersey will not happen to me. I remember people said that Sandra Bland was combative, that she brought it on herself. She was arrested. I am confident that even if I used the exact same tone and words that Sandra did, I would not have been dragged from my car, physically hurt, imprisoned with a bail I could not afford, and held in a cell where I would die. And it's because I live in a body with skin called white. And no one formally trains police officers or retail workers or teachers that people in white bodies are superior to people in bodies with darker skin tones. We all learn it by simply living in our society. Being exposed to news, television shows, advertising, textbooks, and watching and listening to all the other people who've absorbed all the same lessons without ever signing up, asking for, or consenting to this teaching. The news announcer refers to the mayor of some city, and I am surprised to see a Black woman. It's not until I experience the surprise that I realize I was expecting a white man to be a mayor. After waiting on hold, I'm so happy to finally hear a customer service rep's voice until I hear a foreign accent or the tone that I associate with a Black voice. The feeling of disappointment and sinking of my stomach and shoulders happens instantaneously. I don't have control over it. It happens. Then I get to choose consciously and responsibly how I'm going to interact with this person. White supremacy culture has been my invisible, ever-present trainer. I've got these beliefs and I don't want them. And I am not a bad person because I succumbed to this unseen, pervasive training. I am a product of the system, the culture, the society that has surrounded me. I want to become ever more aware of it and give myself more choice, more options, more reality. For me, this is liberating. I can save myself from this false white supremacy culture that imprisons me. And I want help. I want support. And I want accountability. I would like to introduce you to a fish. Here she is. She's beautiful. She has an amazing body that can glide through water. She has gills that absorb oxygen from the water into her bloodstream where it gets distributed throughout the body. She is an amazing creature. Let me show you where she lives. This is Jamie's room. Jamie is 6, and he has this fish tank. Jamie calls her the blue one, and her name is Blue Boo, or Boo Blue. It kind of switches around, and this defines her. For some reason, Jamie really likes to say boo and tap on the glass and try to scare Blue Boo. So it's not so great for this fish. Those orange fish he tends to call orangey and doesn't really distinguish between them. One of his other favorite fish is a little bit hard to see because it's, if you follow Blue Boo's tail and look back underneath, there's a striped fish. And Jamie calls him Tiger. He likes to growl when he says, Tiger. And he thinks Tiger is fierce. And some of the other fish have gotten this idea that Tiger is a little bit dangerous, so they stay away from him. They swim slowly past him. Pretty much Tiger gets to decide where he wants to be, and then the other fish accommodate. So you'll see that there's nobody else back under the coral with Tiger. And all of them live in this tank with artificial light, chemicals in the water to make it seem like it's the sea. They look out of the tank and see a child's room. The temperature is always consistent. They don't know that such a thing as the Pacific Ocean exists. So they could live here. They've got 64 gallons of water or so in their tank. The Pacific Ocean has 187 quintillion gallons. That is 187 followed by 18 zeros. The temperature changes as fish swim around. They have no idea that they could have a name or a species. They just live their life. This is what the fish were born to exist in. But remember where our fish live? Back in the tank. Yeah. They have some sense of a difference because when the tank is cleaned, they have to spend time in an even smaller, less optimized environment. So it's really intense. But what else do they know? They know that little space when the tank is cleaned, and then they know the big space of the tank. Let's look at that blue fish again. I'm wondering, is anyone mad at Blue Boo for how she lives? Is anyone mad at Tiger? Is anyone mad at Jamie? They're just living in all they know.
The global COVID pandemic has created unprecedented economic challenges for people in our community and around the world. CUUC's Hunger and Homelessness team has responded by providing weekly meals for Hope Community Services. Each week we provide food for approximately 150 people in our community who might otherwise be food insecure. This summer we share the plate to support weekly meals to Hope Kitchen. Dedicated volunteers in our CUUC community work each week to cook, package, and deliver food to support this initiative. We are able to provide delicious, nutritious, and quality meals for less than $1 per portion. Some recent meals we have provided include chicken a la king with spring vegetables, turkey chili, and spaghetti with meatballs. We also provide sandwiches, sweets, and other items with the generous support of our CUUC community.
Here at Hope Community Services, we're working hard to make sure our community is fed. When the coronavirus first impacted New Rochelle, we sprang into action immediately. We moved our food pantry and soup kitchen services outdoors to limit the potential spread of the virus while making sure our neighbors were still fed. We expanded our food distribution schedules to accommodate for the increase in need. Our soup kitchen has expanded to offering hot meals 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. And there's a lot of new initiatives here at Hope. We've begun delivering to over 1,000 seniors weekly. We've set up mobile pantries in communities too far from our facility. We've partnered with community organizations and businesses to provide diapers, face masks, and food to our neighbors. With the help of the National Guard, we've taken on a 600% increase in need. When you donate to Hope, your dollars go to programs like these. Please consider helping our mission.
I love that your congregation is sharing your plate with that organization. I invite you into a moment of centering and meditation. Wherever you are, see if you can just feel yourself in your body. You're welcome to enjoy this peaceful image of a forest, or close your eyes, or simply soften your gaze right in front of you. And I invite you just to notice your body. Notice that you are in this body, and that breath is moving in and out, sustaining you in every moment. Notice your feet, if they're on the ground, if they're tucked underneath you, cross-legged. Just let yourself feel the bottom of your feet. Notice your back. If it's being supported by a chair or a sofa, anything. And again, your breath. See what you're noticing about your body. Any tension, any discomfort, where things are flowing smoothly and easily. And to find even more comfort, imagine yourself in a space that feels comforting, comfortable, secure. Or imagine yourself with a person or an animal where you can just settle in and feel safe and secure. And as you check in with your body again, do you notice any changes? My shoulders are lower. I feel more openness in my chest. What do you notice from this secure, safe space that you've created? Your neck, your jaw, your back. Just see what you notice. And I'm going to invite you into a different experience now, a different memory. So let's imagine that that comforting person, animal, or place is gone for the moment. And I would like you to remember a time when you felt some regret, embarrassment, shame even. You've done something that you wish you hadn't done. Don't get too lost in this feeling, but I want you to remember it. Have the memory, don't let it have you. You might just even look at this image if you're having a hard time remembering something. And now check in with your body again. What are you noticing? I feel my shoulders raised again. I feel tightness in my jaw. General discomfort and unease. What do you feel? How's your back, your neck, your torso, your joints? Gently feel into those places that have changed, where you're likely feeling some sense of constriction. Let your attention rest there. See what you notice. Now I invite you to release that memory. Acknowledge the regret and invite back that comforting person, that comforting animal, or return to that safe and secure space. Take a few breaths here and just relax in the safety. And notice, how is your body? We live our lives in our bodies, and so often we forget to attend, to notice, to appreciate. So let's come back together, taking a moment to acknowledge yourself for taking this time to be with your body, to notice what happens in this body, what messages are there. Amen, and blessed be that we are together in these bodies. And now we will sing together the song response to this meditative time.
Calling on you, hungry hearts, everywhere through endless time. You who wonder, you who thirst, I offer you this heart of mine. Calling on you, hungry spirits, all the lost and the left behind. All I can, I'll share with you, your joy and your sorrow, I make it mine.
Being a member of a UU congregation gives us access to the connections and care of this community. And it is also a commitment to a vision and values beyond the standard cultural vision and values. Our culture is based on concepts coming out of the idea of scarcity of resources and the need to stockpile for myself and my close ones. Separation, independence, a reliance on control and even domination to make things go the way they're supposed to go, according to a very few, resulting in powerlessness for many. In our American society, our system works so that a very few people have almost unlimited access to resources, while so many are struggling just to feed themselves and house themselves and their families and maintain a basic sense of dignity and meaning as they're just grinding through what it takes to survive. And we've been socialized to think this is okay, normal, natural even. It takes significant effort with a really clear conscious intention to avoid unconsciously letting the invisible training all around me shape my behaviors, my attitudes, my beliefs. It will somehow make sense to me that I and everybody else place a priority on the needs, the perspectives, the ideas, the concerns of the powerful, who those powerful people look the way I expect them to look: white, male, educated, Christian, straight, able-bodied. You all know the picture. It's been implanted in your minds too. But if we choose to embrace the covenant to affirm and promote Unitarian Universalist principles, like the inherent worth and dignity of every person, a free and responsible search for truth and meaning, and respect for the interdependent web of which we are all a part, then we have to question this standard system that lies at the base of our society. We have to recognize how that system runs counter to the ideals we proclaim, and therefore set out to discover where are we held captive and how do we free ourselves and others. Which is why we want to consider overtly committing to an eighth principle with its explicit statement of an alternative culture. Build a diverse, multicultural, beloved community by our actions that accountably dismantle racism and other oppressions in ourselves and our institutions. I said earlier, as a member of this UU congregation, you make promises with the power to transform you. You are brought out of separateness and into connection and accountability. Covenants epitomize why we come together in religious community, to become clear about and express our ideals and to be held accountable in love when we miss the mark. Did you notice the word accountably in the proposed eighth principle? The words accountability and accountable in my remarks about the power of covenant? How do those words strike you? Accountability is not often our favorite word. About a year ago, I was designing a leadership retreat, and the client insisted on including a workshop from Mike Scott, whose company and product is Totally Accountable Systems. The name still kind of makes my body contract and tighten like it's getting ready to receive a blow. We included his workshop, which was very polished and clear. One of his key suggestions is to use the question, can I count on you for that? When you're, coming to an agreement with someone about a next step. When I was coordinating with him, any commitment he made to me was followed by his own promise. You can count on me for that. As I've pondered what was so off-putting about this concept, I realized it's because it's all in the context of a workplace. His website says his totally accountable system will ensure you, the management of the company, ensure you receive the productivity you pay for in every paycheck, every time. It seems like it just reduces people to some sort of cogs in an organizational machine. And the part that really makes my skin crawl that I finally got is that the workplace is an inherently coercive system, because there's this constant implicit threat that you could lose your job, lose your livelihood, you could get fired. So there's not really a free choice in making a commitment. It's like when someone asks you, can I count on you for that? Like, what answer can you give but yes? So this coercion in the workplace, it just builds on the patterns that were established for most of us in childhood, where we're held to certain standards that we did not help create or freely agree to follow. So this flavor of accountability, of this have to and this should and this threat of punitive action if we don't, that is a flavor of accountability that you can count on me not to get behind. But that's not the only kind of accountability. I'm taking a workshop series right now called White People Doing Their Work. And the topic of accountability came up on our last session on Thursday. Very convenient for me since I was preaching about accountability on Sunday. And here are the 4 things that different people posted in the chat about it. This is everything they said about accountability in the chat, just spontaneously. When you have clarity of purpose, accountability is a no-brainer. I think of accountability to myself, not as coming from someone else. Accountable could be speaking the truth. We live around so many lies. And for me, accountability is acknowledging how I fell short of living from my values. Now, this is the kind of accountability that I have learned to love, to appreciate, to recognize how much I need it. This is the kind of accountability that helps me be the person I want to be, helps me stay true to the visions, the ideals that are dear to me. I need support, structure, and accountability. Someone or something outside myself who I know is counting on me to do it, who is trusting me to do it. So I am willing to say you can count on me sometimes when the stakes are high enough and when I have freely committed to it. And the stakes are high in this moment around Black lives and anti-racism and finding a new way for us all to live and thrive in the interdependent web of which we are all a part. And when I say that I want and I need accountability, I am not saying, please punish me or shame me or shun me if I fall short. One, that's out of alignment with my commitment to nonviolence and my commitment to restorative justice. 2, it's completely ineffective. And since I want to effectively reach my vision, I'm not interested in ineffective strategies. And 3, I am not going to ask to be treated in a way that does not honor my inherent worth and dignity. I want to be held accountable to focus on learning, on repairing harm, on restoring relationship, and on creating the future we want. Brene Brown is a professor and a speaker who has studied courage, vulnerability, shame, and empathy for 20 years. And she is adamant that shame is not an effective social justice tool. One of her most recent podcasts is called On Shame and Accountability in the context of anti-racist work. Again, very fortunate for me because of this sermon topic. And she says shame is a tool of oppression, white supremacy. It's a way of belittling. Audre Lorde told us the master's tools will never dismantle the master's house. So we do not want to use shame because shame is a tool of oppression. Shame corrodes the belief that we can be better and do better. It's much more likely to be the cause of harm than the cure of harm. So the message I take away is that when I and others commit to a vision of beloved community where everyone's needs matter and we are lovingly holding each other accountable, I am not going to be shaming anyone. Now, this is not a guarantee that people will not feel shame. As a white person, I do not enjoy understanding how my ease and comfort have come at the price of suffering and harm to others. It is quite possible I will feel shame when held accountable. I will feel regret. I will feel sorrow. My strategy to keep loving accountability, even when it hurts, is to remember that I am embedded in a system and a culture I did not choose. And any new understanding of how that system works is a path to freedom from the system and access to more choice. Excuse me while I cough. So my mantra is, I'm learning about the system to prevent myself from taking something personally and succumbing to a shame spiral that is not going to help anyone. Brene Brown has a mantra that she uses. She says to herself, I'm here to get it right, not be right. I'm here to get it right, not be right, which is somewhat similar to mine in that it reminds her to learn, to be in process, to be getting it right, learning to get it right. Scientist that she is, she talks about the physiological process of shame, which is a limbic system reaction, hardwired into our reptilian brain way back here. That part of our brain focused on survival. The mantra, I'm here to get it right, not be right, gets her back into her prefrontal cortex. So it's an action that she takes to get out of the shame spiral, to get out of the fight, flight, or freeze, and to get back into her ability to manage her response to accountability, even when shame comes up. So accountability, it's likely to be uncomfortable at times, but it's not dangerous. It's the path to liberation. It's the path to my liberation, and it's the path to liberation for people who are marginalized and oppressed. Rama D'Angelo is the author of White Fragility, and she says, I'll never forget asking a group. I asked the Black people in the group, what would it be like if you could just go there with us? Give us that feedback, tell us, talk to us, and we received it with grace. We reflected, and we sought to change our behavior. And I'll never forget, a Black man raised his hand and said, it would be revolutionary. The fact that he said it would be revolutionary makes me think that he and Black people he knows have not experienced being received with grace and reflection and authentic attempts to change behavior when they've attempted to hold white people accountable and inform us about what it's like to live as a Black person in our culture. But I believe white people out there, we can do this. We can receive information with grace, we can reflect, and we can attempt to change behavior. Hopefully we can succeed in changing behavior. And we need to be ready for the shame if it comes up. I need to remember I'm learning about the system when I start to take it personally. And Brene Brown's advice is to learn to physically recognize when you're in shame. What happens that you can notice? For her, she says, time slows down, she gets tunnel vision, her mouth gets dry, and her armpits tingle. For me, I feel a rush of heat, a strong awareness of my skin, this fuzzy tingling in my head, and a tightness in the inner core of my torso. Brene says, learn to notice these symptoms. And I'm hoping that perhaps in our meditation together, you learned to notice some of these symptoms. And then she says, don't text, talk, or type when you're in the midst of this. Don't text, talk, or type. Get your frontal cortex back online before you talk text or type. Use your mantra. She says, I'm here to get it right, not be right. I sometimes just reassuringly say to myself, you're okay, to soothe that reptilian brain's fear. Brene says we solve the problem of accountability with action, getting our frontal cortex back online, and then what am I going to do differently, say differently, how am I going to show up differently? Change, our action is the cure for shame that we feel around accountability. So white people, we have to learn to manage our discomfort and our shame. When somebody holds me accountable, they're not saying, you're a racist, you are bad. They're saying, this is how it is in the racist system in which we all live. This is the fish tank in which we live. Let's learn to notice it. Let's love that we are learning. Love that you're being held accountable to live into your values. Because the thing is, shame kills empathy. It kills our attention towards others and it keeps us self-involved. And she says, empathy is the foundation of love and justice. At the end of the podcast, she takes a sigh and says, kind, awkward, brave. Kind, awkward, brave. I'm here to get it right, not be right. I'm here to get it right, not be right. I see her practicing in that moment. She hasn't said kind, awkward, brave in the podcast, but I perceive her to be reassuring herself with this mantra. That she wants to be kind, she wants to be willing to be awkward and brave enough to do it. May we each be willing to be kind, awkward, and brave.
Thank you, Leslie. Let us now join in our closing hymn, Circle Round for Freedom. Please sing along wherever you are. We'll sing it through 3 times.
Circle round for freedom, circle round for peace, for all of us imprisoned, circle for release, circle for the planet, circle for each soul, for the children of our children, keep the circle whole. Circle round for freedom, circle round for peace, for all of us imprisoned, circle for release, circle for the planet, circle for each soul, for the children of our children, keep the circle whole. Circle round for freedom, circle round for peace, for all of us imprisoned, circle for release, circle for the planet, circle for each soul, for the children of our children, keep the circle whole.
Thank you each and every one for being with us. We share, so much gratitude for Reverend Leslie Becknell Marx being with us today. Kim and Christian Forrest, our incomparable team, tech team. Pam, who we don't see, our administrator, who does so much of this arranging, and Jane Dixon, who greets us always so warmly in the chat room. After our closing music, we're going to invite you to leave the space and enter our coffee hour room Zoom. There'll be small conversation. If there's enough of those, we'll be in breakout rooms. I'll be there to greet you and to get the conversation going. And as we leave here today, be in greeting with each other by saying, be safe, be well. And if you're listening on your phone, get ready to write down a phone number I will provide shortly. The Zoom login for our virtual hour, it will be on the screen as well. Kim's going to paste it in there and the phone number. And here's the phone number you're going to call by phone. It's 929-436-2866. And then enter the meeting ID 336-956-2210. That's phone number 929-436-2866 and meeting ID 336-956-2210. This information is also on our website. Be safe, be well.
We extinguish our chalice. Please say with me the chalice extinguishing words. As we have gathered, so we depart, to carry into the world who we are, people of free faith, seeking a deeper truth, people of love, resolved to build belonging.
May we be willing to find the kindness, to brave the awkwardness, and to be courageous, to build a diverse, multicultural, beloved community by our actions that accountably dismantle racism and other oppressions in ourselves and our institutions. Kind, awkward, brave.